This is the Trading Psychology Podcast. This is VP, creator of No Nonsense Forex and author of the book No Nonsense Forex Trading Psychology. And with me, as he is every episode, he's everybody's mentor. He's Robb Reinhold.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here.
And just so everybody knows, I need to remind everybody listening to this fine podcast every 5 episodes or so, we are brought to you by Maverick Trading and Maverick Currencies. Robb, if anybody's new out there and you want to give them the 30-second elevator pitch of what you guys do over there, what would you say?
Okay, here is the pitch. We are a U.S.-based prop firm. We've been in business since 1997. We started our currency division in 2009. We've been doing this a very, very long time. And I now have to call us old school prop because there's a new style of prop trading that's come up that is all based on challenges. So you join these firms, you do challenges. If you pass the challenge, you get a little bit more capital. If you script the challenge, you go back to the beginning. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with those, and those are great businesses. And there's some that run them very legitimately. We're old school prop, and the fact that prop used to be where you brought in a trader and you trained them. You trained them, and you helped them out, and you coached them, and you mentored them, and you stayed with them through their live trading, their demo trading, everything, into where you got them to where they're on their own feet. Our goal at Maverick Trading, and I've said this for years, let's say that the Maverick Trading headquarters had a gas leak, it blew up and it killed all of the management and all the coaches and all the mentors. All of our traders, I hope they are sad for give us 10, 15 seconds. That's not too much to ask. And then shrug your shoulders and say, I'll be fine anyway, because you already know what you're doing. That's our goal. Our goal is to have it to where you don't need us anymore, but you want to stay with us because we're a good firm and we also have capital for you to trade.
And they have capital regardless if you're trading stocks or options or Forex or currencies. You can trade any or all of those things. So let's go ahead and move on to this episode, Robb. This is another user submission, and this is a topic that I covered on the first podcast I ever created. It was the Forex Q&A podcast. This was episode 30-something. I don't know, because I used to get this question way more than I wanted it. Let's put it that way. There are just certain parts of the world that think this is an acceptable question to ask, and in my mind, it is not. I would like to hear your thoughts on this. As anybody knows who listens to this podcast, when it comes to tolerance levels, mine is very low, Robb's is very high. And then the challenge is to find out that Venn diagram of things we agree on and then push it out to the world. So before we start, as we normally do here now, I want to define terms when it comes to mentorship and what a mentor means. I'll give you my definition, Robb, and you can either rebut it or add to it or agree with it, whatever you want to do. I think mentorship in general can be one of two things. It can either be more of a symbolic mentor, like when I was coming up, I don't think I really had a mentor. People say that Inner Circle Trader was my mentor. I don't know if I would say that, but I did learn from his teachings. And I had some other people like the Daily FX crew that I really liked and things like that. I wouldn't say I had like an actual Mr. Miyagi style, mentor, but there's people that I drew from and learned from. And if you want to call those people mentors, I think that's fine. And that's something you're going to have to do because you have to learn from somebody. You can't just do it all on your own. That's one of those things in life. You can't just do everything solo. You're going to need people there in your life. There's probably a lot of people at the firm that would call you their mentor, Robb, even though you don't do a whole lot of one-on-one. And that one-on-one is what most people, when they come to me and say, I would like a mentor, that's what they're hoping I do, is that I stop everything I'm doing and say, okay, since you were so kind to ask, and, I was in your position once, all this kind of stuff. Yes, I will be your actual one-on-one mentor. So those are the two I think I would define it as, your symbolic mentor and then your personal coach. Do you have a third one to add? Are you okay with my definitions? Where do you stand on this?
As with most terms, and we even discussed this in a previous episode about what is a swing trader, what's a scalper, these definitions are really in the eye of the beholder. So I've had a lot of people call me their mentor that I've never seen their face before. I've never even seen them. I would pass them by on a street And actually, this happens all the time at our summits that we do every year, where we actually have all of our traders come to a city. Usually it's Vegas, Chicago, or New York. And we all meet face to face. And people have listened to hundreds of hours of my voice. I've told stories about my family. I've told stories about everything. And when they meet me in person, they're like, oh my gosh, how's your wife doing? And then I heard about your bicycle accident. I heard about this. And I'm like, I don't know your name. Like, can we start off with what is your name? And then they give me their name. And then it's like, oh, okay, we've had some sessions. I've had some emails with you. Okay, I now know a little bit more of who you are. But right at first, it's different. So I love your definitions. I actually would only consider a mentor a one-on-one sit down with you and walk you through things. If you want to use the term symbolic mentor, great. That doesn't bother me at all. But I think it's really that title belongs to someone who has personally got in the trenches with you and fought with you in the trenches. I think that's a mentor.
Okay, good. Because I would like to continue on that particular definition right there. Because I know when these people ask, that's mostly what they're asking. And I have more or less said it on that old podcast episode long ago that I hate every inch of this question so very much. Because first of all, I think it's a very socially awkward question. I mean, if you really sit down and think about it, why would somebody, especially somebody who's busy and has told the world that they're busy, and this is why they trade a certain way, for example, that's why I'm a swing trader, because I have other things to do, in any given day, I'm very busy. And then why, out of all the people who subscribe and listen to my material, why should I separate you out from all of them and then take time out of my day to mentor you? I mean, all of the material is right there for everybody to see. Why do you get special treatment and they don't? That is always my big question. And then I say, look, the type of people who ask questions like this, who want their hand held every step of the way, 999 out of 1,000 times, because of the type of person they are, because they're the type of person to ask this question, they're not going to make it anyway. They're the type that if they don't have somebody over their shoulder all the time, pretty much doing the work for them, which deep down is what I think they want, then their chance of success is almost zero. The best thing for you to do, if you're going to get a mentor, find somebody, one, that that you can see in person, and two, have them work on you and do whatever they can do to make you less helpless in life, because this is just an archetype of person, and I hate to say this because I know some of those people are probably out there, that I just don't want to help because it's pointless. I would rather help people who help themselves, and that's why I made the channel the way it was. And so, but before I rant any further on this, Rob, because I certainly could, this is Intolerant VP talking. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, and if you have any, especially if you have any counterpoints to what I just said, because this is something that has always irritated me. I get where people are coming from, but there is so much free information out there for you to absorb. I mean, I have a whole page of testimonials of people who went pro and got funded based on my material. And I did not personally mentor a single one of them. So all this said, sir, why do you need mentorship given all these other factors?
Well, you don't. You don't. And I love to say this, and I've said this for years, especially when people are thinking about coming on to Maverick Trading. We ask quite a commitment for people before they come aboard, as far as upfront capital, as far as time, as far as commitment. Our training program takes like 120 hours minimum to get through. So it is a very difficult process. But I always tell people, look, you don't need us to be a successful trader. You don't need anyone. And in fact, your success is 100% dependent on you. You're going to make it if you keep trying and never quit. That's how you're going to make it. And for some people, they're going to make it in 2 years, 5 years, 12 years, 27 years, 53 years. look, there are some people that will probably work their whole life at this and die as a failure. But if they could have lived just a little bit longer, they would have actually gotten over it. My point is that the mentor isn't the key to success. You are. Now, are there people that can help you through that process, that can help you with both the knowledge, but look, the knowledge is out there. You just have to dig deep enough to find the knowledge. So even the mentor isn't going to be about the knowledge. They're mostly going to be about the stuff like the psychology and the stuff like the motivation. That's really people always say like, oh, I want to get a mentor, and people say, who would be the best golf mentor for you? And they're always like, Tiger Woods. I'm like, that would be a terrible mentor. He would be the worst mentor ever. How about the coach for Tiger Woods? That's probably a much better mentor. You want someone who is in the business of helping people become professional traders, or at least has done it with hundreds of people before. So no, you don't need a mentor. It's completely unnecessary. Will it help you get through certain parts of the learning curve? Absolutely. But you're still going to have to put in a ton of work, and it's just going to shorten up the time. That's it.
Yeah, and if you look at the people out there who are mentored, these are typically people who have had a very hard life or a very hard childhood, for example. And the mentors that step up are not people they ask to mentor them. They're the opposite of me. They're very kind volunteers who step up and say, I want to make a difference in these people's lives. That's usually where mentorship comes from. Coming to somebody and asking them to take time out of their day and give you special treatment for free is just a very awkward, weird, and shitty question. Even though I know you didn't mean for it to be. Just understand the other side of this equation too, the person you're asking. Because I want the best for everybody who comes through and actually gives my channel and my method the time of day. And so I think it's mostly just disappointment on my end when they just want somebody to stand over their shoulder and teach them and do all the teaching work for them instead of them going in to learn themselves. I'm like, man, there's so many people who come across my channel. The vast majority just don't want to put in the work. And as soon as they realize it is work, they leave. And now you look like you're going to be another one of those people. And it hurts my heart in a way because, I put out there to help people. I did 20 years of hospitality, an entire life, adult life in service. And then I put everything out for free. And that's what I like to do. But there has to be some type of reciprocity there too, to where you have to want to actually take it in yourself without extra help. Now, that being said, Rob, there's a lot of extra help out there beyond just learning material. Do you have anything to add before we get into those?
I do. And I'm just thinking about my own life and the interactions I have with traders. And, when I was really sitting here thinking about what can someone do? What can someone do to help an aspiring trader to actually make it? And I said, it's not about the technicals. Everyone can learn the technicals. It's not about the money management. You can learn that. And I actually thought back to in my life, I have lots of interactions with our traders. A lot of them is, hey, good job. You had a great week. Keep it up. But some of it is, hey, you had a bad week or you had a really bad month. And a lot of times these people are in the dumps. And especially when it's a really bad month and they end up possibly getting a trading suspension. The call I make when someone earns a trading suspension is the most valuable call that I can make as the leader of our firm. And I don't talk about technicals. I don't talk about anything. I talk about, hey, how you doing? How you holding up? And they're like, dude, this sucks. Like I've worked so hard and I was profitable for 6 months and now I took this big hit. I'm in the dumps. And there's tears sometimes. There's tears. My best call I can make is to get that person through the weekend into next week to where they're going to pick things back up, get back on the horse, and work towards getting their trading suspension lifted and back to trading. That's that moment that I think a mentor is the best. Everything else, it's just information. So I know that not everyone has that, and I know that that's not readily available, But those are really the moments. Everything else, you don't need anyone else for any of this stuff in trading.
Yeah, and that really does lead in well to the alternatives that I came up with here. One is if you are a part of a prop firm, I would suggest you join a prop firm that has real people there that can help you should you need it. Again, this isn't going to be one-on-one. You're with them all the time. Don't abuse this help. But at Maverick, for example, not to pump your book any further, Rob, but it's like you have a whole staff of people there. People that you get to know because you take classes from them, and you jump into the groups and the rooms and things like that. And that depending on what your situation is, you could reach out for them and ask them for help. I did it with Ankit. I did it with Corey. Thankfully, you and I never got to the point to where you and I had to have that call. But I'm sure it would have been very productive. And I'm sure I would have probably broken down and cried too, because joining a prop firm was the moment I was working really hard for a very long time. And I felt like, in a very short amount of time, and I blew that chance. So, there are times where, those rare times where you really do need somebody there. And if you're already surrounded by those people from the start, well, then it becomes a lot easier than just approaching a stranger.
Patrick, I love this. And let me share with you how I hire a coach at Maverick. So we do all of our hiring internally. Every single person, I shouldn't say every single person, but 99% of the people that I've hired to work internally for Maverick, to where you have more of a role than just one of our traders. We always hire from the inside. So I remember the first time that I hired someone to be a coach, I hired our best trader. I thought, hey, you know what? He's going to make the best coach. Guess what? He was a terrible trader. Sorry, he was a terrible coach and mentor. He wasn't good. So when I now hire someone, I don't necessarily hire the best trader. I could easily hire someone who is, moderately profitable or even mildly profitable. I hire good people with good people skills and the people that care. That's what I hire internally at Maverick, is I hire people that give a shit. That really, I know that when they get on with every single person, they're going to be 100% present and try their best. That's how I hire coaches at Maverick.
And that's really the way to do it, because you already have an idea of what that person is about. So the chances of them being a great, I hate to say, for lack of a better term, mentor, is going to go up. But you have to have the want to, and just not everybody does. And I guess that's where I'm speaking from. It's interesting. I'm back in the States now, and I had dinner with a friend I hadn't seen in a while, and we were talking about the show Billions. Because I used to watch it a lot more than I do now, but we said, okay, who would you be if you were a character on the show Billions? And my friend was like, I would absolutely be Dollar Bill. And I'm like, yes, you would be Dollar Bill. You have most of that guy's traits and rhythms and things like that. And I said, who do you think I would be? And he sat there and he thought about it for a while. He goes, I don't really know who you'd be. I'm like, dude, mine is so obvious. He's like, I give up. Who? I'm like, I am obviously Wendy. She is the psychologist in the room. I have a trading psychology podcast. Apart from Rob Reinhold, who else has that? Nobody. So that might just be what I was put on this earth to do. And he was like, yeah, if you ever wanted to, you could probably go to a big time hedge fund or someplace and be that in-house psychologist and do a really good job. And I said, shut your mouth. I don't even want to think about having a job like that. That would be the most miserable thing I could possibly think of doing, because I just don't want to take time to do that one-on-one interaction and deal with that. I want to do other things. I can help in other ways. So yeah, you really have to pay attention to the motivations of these people who want to help, because some people do and some people don't. And even if they're mediocre at it, if they at least want to do it, that's why social workers are so hard to hire, because it's a low-paying job that most people don't want to do. So when you find somebody who at least wants to do it, even if they suck and their communication skills are horrible, you still keep them on board, because you can train them over time to be better. But that desire really is quite rare.
Yeah, look, it's like I said earlier in a mentor, there's so much stuff out there nowadays. There's so much stuff. What you really need is you really need someone who cares about your success. And we've had other episodes where we've talked about spouses, friends, parents, son or daughters, anyone you can get in your life that is going to be positive. And again, they're not going to know anything about technicals. They're not going to know anything about, when a MACD crosses, what does it mean? They don't need to know that. They need to just be there for you and encourage you.
And as far as who those people are going to be in your life, if you still feel like you need somebody there, don't despair. Like, of course, Maverick is going to have that if you are part of their prop firm. But joining Maverick is very expensive as far as prop firms go. It is not for everybody because a lot of people just simply can't afford to put that much forward simply to join something that may or may not work. So what else do you do in this case? Well, like I said, there are less expensive prop firms. Just make sure it's not the type that Robb was talking about before where they're just all about the tests and then you're kind of on your own. You want someplace, and there are less expensive prop firms, I'm sure, that have this, that have people there that can be on your side should you need it. On top of that, there are other trading communities you can be a part of. I have a Discord. If you go to nononsenseforex.com, go to the facts. There's an invite link in those facts. I like people to be able to find it first instead of just give it to the world and have a bunch of people on my Discord forum that probably don't belong there. So if you really want it, you want to find it, I'll go and tell you where it is. It's right there. And there's so many people there that are going through the exact same things you're going through. And so many people have already been through the things you're going through right now, and they can help you. So that's one option. And another option, and Robb, you mess around with this a lot, so I think you can probably add a bit here, is AI just keeps getting better and better and better. The language models part of it, between ChatGPT and Gemini, and especially Grok. Now, I think right now, for the best version of Grok, you would have to pay for Twitter Premium, but that's far less than you have to pay for a prop firm. And you get something that I think, I actually have an AI language model I can really talk to and really explain nuances to my problems, and they typically get it. They don't get everything right. You like any AI program, you are correcting it sometimes. But man, if I was really in a bad place and I didn't have anybody to turn to, I might feel okay going to AI because what they've been able to help me with so far has really been tremendous.
I've got a little smirk on my face because you've hit one of my, I'm not going to call it a conspiracy theory because it's most likely going to happen. And there's already been several movies about this, of where AI becomes where we go to get our personal interactions. We as human beings, we crave human-to-human one-on-one contact. But yet in the world we live in today, sometimes that doesn't happen. And that's where, a lot of people go into depression. They go into, feeling very low. And, all the studies show that how many social connections you have and the depth of those connections are perfectly correlated to how happy you are as a person. AI, as weird as it is to say now, and I think probably in 10 years, people aren't going to find it weird. Just like when online dating came around, everyone thought it was weird. Now that's literally how you meet people. I think AI psychology is going to be amazing. And not just psychology, but AI friendship. And I've even heard about AI romances that people are deciding, hey, I don't want to go into the dating pool. I'm just going to get that fix that I need as a human being through AI. It's messed up. I know it sounds weird now, but I think we are on the bubble of where this is going to become socially acceptable as an actual companion for you. I know that sounds weird. Go get a real companion. But if you can't find it anywhere, absolutely use it 100%. I think it's going to be more normalized in the future than it sounds now.
So is that the conspiracy? Because I have a smirk on my face because you are the anti-conspiracy theory guy. So is that...
It's not a conspiracy. It's just what I see most likely happening. Conspiracy would be like, do I believe something that I can't prove? Well, I'm projecting my opinion in the future. Conspiracy is more like something's happening now. Like if I said that the lizard people have developed AI to trick us into not dating and not procreating so they can take over the world. That's conspiracy. So it's not conspiracy. It's conjecture.
Gotcha. Okay. But so before we close, I mentioned the 3 AI engines that I like. Do you have any to add to ChatGPT, Gemini, and Grok?
I've definitely played around with them, and it's really not until you go into really detailed things where they seem to, one's better than the other, like really deep programming. I mean, in the end, for what most people are going to use them for, I don't think there is a preference of one or the other. It's only when you get into really deep stuff you're going to find there's a difference, and that's really going to be subject dependent.
Gotcha. Okay. And I guess, kind of what Robb is saying too, or alluding to, is if you use these for help, get in and then kind of get out. Don't become too dependent on it, because I think, I can almost say with certainty that there will be, the better these things get, there will be people out there who become absolutely reliant on these things. And maybe that is going to be a good thing. I can't see that being a good thing, and I don't want humanity to turn into that myself, but I guess that's just
don't fall in love with your AI, is what I'm saying.
Even if she talks like Scarlett Johansson, don't fall in love with AI. And on that note, traders, thank you for joining Robb and I here at the Trading Psychology Podcast. We will both join you in the next episode.
Goodbye, everybody.